No matter how much we may try to make Mother Nature bend according to will, every now and then she'll remind us who's really in charge. From the Brahmagino-Mina Dam collapse to the red sludge in Ica destroying the surrounding ecosystem, here are some of the most massive dam failures. Brumagino. The disaster near the small town of Brumagino in southeastern Brazil occurred shortly after midday on the 25th of January 2019. At a nearby iron ore mine, the Tailings Dam, a storage area for the sludgy, fine-grained residues from ore processing, or tailings, collapsed. A huge mudslide of about 10 million cubic meters of liquefied tailings flooded the side of the mine, destroying neighboring settlements and taking a railway bridge with it. The ecosystem of the Paraopeba River downstream of the mine was ruined. Although the dam had a monitoring system, no one had foreseen the disaster. An investigation committee concluded that the accident was caused by slowly accumulating microscopic displacements known as creep in the deposited tailings layers. Still, it did not provide the exact physical mechanism supporting this theory. In particular, uncertainty remained as to why the dam broke in 2019, specifically 3 years after the pond was last loaded with new tailings, and why no significant displacements had been detected before the collapse. Lao Dam failure. Major damage was caused after the flooding that followed the collapse of an under-construction dam in southeast Laos. Workers found the hydroelectric dam in Adapur province was partially damaged the day before the disaster happened, and luckily the villagers living nearby were evacuated. The dam collapsed late the next day, sending flash floods through 6 villages. Sadly, even though no lives were lost, more than 6,600 people ended up becoming homeless. The dam that collapsed is part of the Shepyeon Shey Nam Noi hydroelectric power project, which involves Laotian, Thai, and South Korean firms. The subsidiary dam, known as Saddle Dam D, was part of a network of 2 main dams and 5 subsidiary dams. SK Engineering and Construction, a South Korean company with a stake in the project, said fractures were first discovered on the dam on Sunday before it collapsed. Viant Dam. On the disastrous day of October 9, 1963, close to 260 million cubic meters of rock broke off from the top of Monte Toc, which is located on the border between Veneto and Friuli Venezia Giulia. It fell with full force into the reservoir of the Viant Dam, producing a huge tsunami wave of at least 50 million cubic meters of water. The dam, which was regarded as one of the biggest in the world at the time, did not suffer any serious damage, but the flooding destroyed several villages in the valley and displaced a third of the population of the Longarone, the largest village downstream of the dam. Uttarakhand Electric Dam. On February 7, 2021, a Himalayan glacier broke and caused a flash flood in the North Indian state of Uttarakhand. The avalanche smashed 2 hydroelectric dam projects and caused major damage to surrounding buildings. According to environmentalists who have been studying Himalayan glaciers for decades, linked this deadly disaster, like many others before it, to climate change. They argued that the construction of the Tapovan Vishnagad hydroelectric project, one of the 2 damaged by the February 7th flash flood, likely increased the damage caused by the disaster. This dam was being built by India's National Thermal Power Corporation with the financial backing of the Asian Development Bank. Both the NTPC and ADB were undoubtedly aware of the warnings environmental groups and other agencies have been issuing about hydropower development in the area since at least 2013. Their apparent decision to ignore these warnings cost the lives of hundreds of people working on the project site on the fateful morning of February 7th. Auburn Cofferdam Dam. In early 1986, a huge flood began pouring down from the Sierra Nevada mountains, in what would later be considered one of the largest regional floods in recorded history. Placer County was quickly designated a federal disaster area. Rampaging streams and rivers incurred some $7.5 million in damages within the county. 10 inches of rainfall fell on the Sacramento region in 11 days. The flooding was so catastrophic that the rating for the city's systems, supposedly designed to prevent a 125-year flood, was dropped to a 78-year flood. The flood rapidly filled the pool behind the Auburn cofferdam to capacity, as the diversion tunnel could not handle the extra water pouring into the reservoir. At about 9 a.m. on February 18th, the rising water overtopped the cofferdam near the right abutment, creating a waterfall that quickly eroded into the structure. Even though the cofferdam was designed with a soft earthen plug to fail in a controlled manner if an event like this were ever to occur, the outflow reached 100,000 cubic feet per second by noon, and several hours later, the maximum discharge reached 250,000 cubic feet per second, completely obliterating the construction site and destroying almost half of the cofferdam. Ica Dam failure. The catastrophe unfolded when the reservoir cracked open after weeks of heavy rain, releasing 1.1 million cubic meters of poisonous red sludge. The mud, a caustic byproduct of aluminum extraction, rushed into the nearby villages of Kolentar, Devacher, and Shamlova Sharhele. On top of that, the sludge wiped out almost all life in nearby rivers and even spread to the Danube. In total, the devastation spread across the area in more than 15 square miles. Responding to the disaster, the Hungarian government declared a state of emergency and evacuated about 8,000 people. Over the following months, workers toiled to remove the mud from the floodplain and doused the area with acid. But despite vast sums spent on depolluting the region, it still bears traces of the accident, and hundreds of hectares of land remain sealed off and cannot be used for cultivation. Sardoba Reservoir failure. At 5:55 a.m. on May 1st, after 5 days of severe storms, a dam wall at the Sardoba Reservoir in the region Sardario, Uzbekistan, collapsed, and water poured through a breach onto cotton fields and villages. To reduce water pressure on the walls of the reservoir and prevent further collapse of dam walls, its gates were opened. Water spilled into the southern Golodnostepsky Canal and its offshoots, with the intention of sending it to the Idar-Arnasay Lakes, a wetland of international ecological importance. But things took a turn for the worse when the capacity of the canal was overwhelmed, which eventually led to the flood expanding. The flooding affected more than 35,000 hectares of land in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. In addition, at least 111,000 were evacuated from the Sur Darya River basement. According to various experts, some of the major causes for the collapse of the dam were a culmination of decades of mismanagement and regional water conflicts in the river basin. Sayano-Shushenskaya Dam. On the 17th of August 2009, the hydroelectric plant suffered a catastrophic accident that caused flooding of the engine and turbine rooms, as well as two 711 MVA electric generators to explode underwater as a result of a short circuit. All other machinery present in the plant ended up getting damaged to some extent too, with only 4 hydroaggregates ultimately recovered, whereas the remaining 6 required replacement. Power generation from the station ceased completely following the incident, and the resulting blackout in residential areas was alleviated by diverting power from other plants. Edenville. Mid-Michigan saw a significant amount of rainfall over the weekend of May 16th and 17th, 2020. It eventually caused water to pile up rapidly in Wixom Lake behind the Edenville Dam. As if that wasn't bad enough, nearly 6 inches of rain was reported further north at the Secord Dam on the Tittabawassee River, and nearly 4 inches of rain fell at the Edenville Dam over May 16th and 17th, 2020. The engineer's report from that time states that the dam's operators only opened the spillway gates about 7 feet on May 18th and 19th because they were concerned about their personal safety, as well as the structural integrity of the spillways. But this meant that the water couldn't move through the dam as fast as it reached the structure. According to various reports, the water level in Wixom Lake was 5.5 feet higher than normal, and only 1.5 feet below the top of the dam when it failed. The dam was holding back a record amount of water and was placed under higher stress than it ever had seen before when it failed. About 10,000 people were evacuated when the dam eventually broke, with thousands of homes and businesses sustaining damage, which eventually led to a total property loss of over $250 million. The worst part is that when the final report on what caused the Edenville Dam failure was released, It noted that the catastrophe could have been prevented if different actions had been taken over decades, especially in the days leading up to the failure. Sadly, the Edenville Dam wasn't the only one affected. When the dam failed, the contents of Wixom Lake rushed down the Tittabawassee River through Midland and Saginaw counties and quickly overtopped the Sanford Dam, causing record flooding in Midland. As for the reason why this dam failed, according to the official report, the cause was static liquefaction, which caused the soil on the east bank of the Edenville Dam to fail. That is a process where the soil becomes completely saturated with water and loses its strength. Archusa Water Park Dam. The dam at Archusa Water Park in Quitman breached near the emergency spillway on Sunday. The National Weather Service had initially issued a flash flood warning in Clark County shortly after dam operators reported the failure, but it eventually expired when they realized it didn't pose much threat to the locals living close to the park. Clark County Emergency Management said that the breach was close to 100 feet wide, and fortunately, the dam was a low-hazard structure, as there was little development downstream, and the consequences of failure were mostly limited to the loss of a state-owned recreational water park. One of the major reasons why the dam failed was because of a 5-year storm event, triggered by intense rainfall of nearly 4.25 inches in just a few hours. The consequent runoff generated by the storm caused a rapid rise in lake level to elevation above the flood pool, resulting in flow over the emergency spillway. A breach then formed through the emergency spillway due to progressive erosion and head cutting caused by excessive water flow velocity, which is a well-known failure mechanism. And that wraps up our list of some of the most massive dam failures. Let us know in the comments which dam failure you saw coming from a mile away, and which one scared the living daylights out of you. Follow us for more freaky nature content. See you next time.